I have lost count of how many buyers have told me they are comfortable stretching on a Portland house because, quote, they will just Airbnb part of it. It is one of the most common reasons people talk themselves into a payment that scares them, and almost none of them have read the actual rules or priced the actual fees before they set it. So today I am doing the thing the title promises: real numbers, what the permit costs, what the taxes and fees take, how many nights you are allowed to rent when you are not home, and what happens if you get it wrong, which in Portland is more expensive than in any other city the city's own ombudsman could find. I'm Jenny Turner with Lovejoy Real Estate, and I'm not here to sell you a house. I'm here to make sure you don't regret the one you buy or sell. So let's get into it. First off, disclaimer, I am a real estate broker, not an attorney and not a CPA. Everything here comes from 5 places: Portland City Code, mainly Chapter 33.207 and Chapter 6.09, the accessory short-term rental pages published by Portland Permitting and Development, the fee schedules the same bureau adopted effective July 10th, 2026, the Residency Division's transient lodgings pages, and the City Ombudsman's investigation into short-term rental enforcement published March 4th, 2026. One tax point comes from the IRS Topic 415 and one from the Oregon Department of Revenue. All are linked in the description. One thing about the dollar figures before we start. Portland readopts these fees and fines every budget cycle, and this year's took effect July 10th. I am giving you today's numbers and a link to the live schedule, and if there's any gap between the two, believe the schedule, because these numbers do get updated annually. If you are already operating, or you have a citation in hand, or you are midway through an ADU permit, go talk to a real estate attorney about the enforcement side and a CPA about the tax side. Today, not after you finish the video. The numbers here are large enough that a professional advice pays for itself. Here's the assumption, and it shows up in almost every conversation about a house with a basement, an ADU, or more bedrooms than the buyer needs. Worst case, I rent it out short-term and cover the distance. That treats short-term rental income like a backup plan. In Portland, it is closer to a small licensed business with a residency require, a neighbor notification requirement, an inspection, a per-night fee, and a fine schedule with no warning letter attached. So here's the actual question. I will answer it directly at the end. Can you actually turn part of a Portland property into a short-term rental income? And once you subtract what the city makes, what is the real math? Part 1, the residency rule and the 95 days nobody mentions. Portland's program is called Accessory Short-Term Rental, ASTR for short, and the word doing all the work in that name is accessory. The core rule is this: there must be a resident who lives in the dwelling unit at least 270 days during each calendar year, which is roughly 9 months. The city says it in plain language on its own page. Renting the entire dwelling unit on a short-term basis without a long-term resident occupying the unit for at least 270 days is not allowed in residential zones. Vacant units and units that are not somebody's primary residence are not eligible at all. Residency gets verified with an Oregon driver's license or state ID showing that address, and the city staff check DMV records to confirm it. That one rule deletes the version most people are picturing. Buy a second house, furnish it, never live in it, rent it year-round. Portland did not leave a loophole for that. The Ombudsman's own framing is that the residency require is designed to prevent investors from turning homes into hotels. But here's the part the internet almost never tells you. You can rent bedrooms for an unlimited number of nights while you are home with no cap at all. And you can rent while you are away, including the whole place, for up to 95 days a year. The city's phrasing, the greatest number of days you may be away from home in a calendar year and still be renting to overnight guests is 95, roughly 3 months. 95, not 365. That's the difference between covering your mortgage while you're on a long trip and running an investment property. 2 more limits decide whether a specific house even works. The Type A permit lets you rent no more than 2 bedrooms to no more than 5 overnight guests. And on a site with an ADU, you can live in either the main house or the ADU and rent bedrooms in the other one, but the maximum number of rented bedrooms on the whole site is still 2. So a 3-bedroom ADU cannot be rented as a unit under Type A. 3 to 5 bedrooms puts you into Type B territory, which brings us to the money. Section 2, the real math. First, a timing note, because it matters more here than anywhere else in this video. Portland readopts these fees every budget cycle. This year they landed on July 10th, and the Astor fees and fines went up to 26% in one move. So take the numbers I am about to say as of today, and check the current schedule before you write a check. I'll link it below. A Type A permit today costs $504 and covers you for 2 years. Call it $250 a year. That's genuinely cheap. A Type B is not a permit in the same sense. It is a conditional use approval, and getting it means a discretionary land use review. Under the schedule in effect right now, a Type 2 conditional use review runs $10,686 all in once you add in the other bureau's review fees, and if your case gets bumped to type 3, it is more than 3 times that. Once you are approved, there is a business operation validation fee of $309 that renews every 2 years. So $10,000 and change before you have hosted a single guest. The ombudsman put it plainly. Type B costs more than 20 times what a Type A costs. And 2 economists interviewed for that report said the gap functions as an incentive to cheat. That ratio is held through every fee increase because the city raises both sides by the same percentage. Now the ongoing side, which is where the arithmetic gets decided. Oregon State transient lodging is 1.5%. Portland's is 6%. Multnomah County is 5.5%. The city states that lodging establishments must collect a total of 11.5% occupancy taxes from guests for the city and county layers, with the state 1.5% on top. Those come out of the guest bill, not yours. And Airbnb has a registered booking agent collecting and remitting Portland's taxes since July 2014. Then 2 more that people miss completely. There's a 3% Portland Tourism Improvement District fee on taxable rents, and that one is due from you as the operator. You may pass it along to the guest, but only if it is stated separately on their bill as 3% Portland Tours Assessment. If you do not itemize it, you eat it. And there is a flat $4 per night fee on short-term rentals under City Code Chapter 6.09. Read that one carefully because it is the one that people get backwards, including me in an earlier draft of the script. The code puts the fee on the booking agent or the transient lodging intermediary, which in plain English means Airbnb or VRBO, not you. They are allowed to pass it to the guest, but only if the guest receipt lists it separately as the Portland Housing and Homeless fee. So it is not a line item out of your pocket. What it is $4 a night added to what your guest sees, on top of 11.5% in occupancy taxes, which makes your listing that much harder to book at the price you had in mind. Let's put a number on it, and I want to be upfront that I am making up a rent figure so the math is easy to follow. Say a basement suite at $1,500 a month rents long term. I picked that because it is round, not because I pulled it from a report. No primary source publishes rents for basement suites as a category. Long term, that is $18,000 a year on one lease. Run the short-term version at 100 nights. Your share of the permit is $250 a year. The 3% tourism test assessment is yours unless you itemize it, and on 100 nights of bookings, that is real money. The $4 a night is not your bill, but it is $400 a year, a drag on what your guest is willing to pay. And none of that is the expensive part. The expensive part is the cleaning between every stay, higher utilities, and replacing linens and coffee makers on a schedule instead of never. If you hire a management company, that comes off the top too, and I'm not giving you a percentage because nobody publishes verified Portland management fees. Get 3 quotes in writing. The point is not the exact total. The point is that the long-term lease has one number and the short-term version has a stack of them, and the stack goes up every July. One federal wrinkle worth a CPA conversation from IRS Topic 415. If your personal use exceeds the greater of 14 days or 10% of the days you rent at the fair rental price, the IRS treats the space as a residence and caps your deduction at a gross rental income limitation. That 14 days is super important. So here's the honest framing. Run the long-term rent as your baseline because that's the number that qualifies you for the house. Anything short-term adds is upside, arriving unevenly and costing you labor. So Section 3, the paperwork, the letter, and the inspection. Here's the part that surprises people who assumed this was a form and a credit card. You need the permit before you list anywhere. Your permit number has to appear in all advertising, and it also has to be posted inside the dwelling unit. And since October 2024, advertising more bedrooms or get more guests than your permit allowed is its own citable violation, independent of whether or not you ever hosted that many people. Wording, images, descriptions implying higher capacity, all of it counts, and it's a violation. You also have to register as a business with the city and open a revenue division tax account covering both the transient lodgings tax and the business tax programs. That is due within the first 15 days of starting the business, and the advertising starts the clock, not your first booking. You then get a certificate of authority, which has to be posted where the guests can see it. And you have to keep transactional records, guest names, home addresses, dates of stays, numbers of guests, and hand them to the city on request. Then now there are 2 requirements that almost nobody talks about, and they are the 2 that actually catch people. 1, your neighbors get a letter, and for most of you, you are the one that mails it. This is backwards from how people assume it works. For a Type A permit, notification is your job. You fill out the city's neighborhood notice form and mail or deliver it to every recognized organization whose boundaries include the rental, meaning your neighborhood association and your district coalition, the property manager if there is one, and neighboring properties per the application directions. Then you submit a copy of that notice plus the list of addresses you sent it with your application. And you do it again every 2 years because the permit is only good for 2 years and renewal requires documenting that you met the notification requirement again. For a Type B, the city mails a notice for you and there's no applicant notification requirement at all. What there is instead is an appeal right. The applicant, the neighbors, the neighborhood association, or any interested party can appeal the planner's decision or the conditions of approval to the city's hearing officer who holds a public hearing. And there is an inspection layer. For a Type A, you sign a self-certification that the bedrooms meet the requirements, and then 10% of all Type A applicants get randomly selected for an on-site inspection before the permit is issued. Any member of the public can also trigger an inspection by reporting a potential violation. For a Type B, a site inspection to verify the bedrooms is mandatory before you operate, requested on a request for residential fee paid inspection form with the fee attached. The inspector checks 3 things: that the bedrooms were legally created as sleeping rooms, that they meet the minimum fire and life safety requirements, that you have interconnected smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms. And here is the sentence that matters most. If you fail, you will not be listed on the short-term rental registry, and you cannot rent it until it passes. An illegal bedroom gets cited as a violation, and if it is not corrected within 30 days, the owner can be hit with monthly code enforcement fees. Think about which properties this hits the hardest. A finished basement suite from an unpermitted 1990s conversion. A bonus room somebody called a bedroom on a listing sheet. If that is a live question at your house, get it answered before you build a plan around it. Section 4, the ADU Waiver Trap. This gets its own section because it is the most expensive mistake in this video, and I have not seen anybody else covering it. If your property has an ADU, there is a decent chance somebody took the city's ADU System Development Charge waiver when it was built. It is a real incentive and it saves serious money. The catch is a recorded 10-year covenant, and almost everyone, including people who signed one, believe the covenant only covers the ADU. It does not. Portland's own page says it about as clearly as any government page can. The ADU SDC Waiver Program applies to the entire property. During the 10-year period of the covenant, no structure on the property can be a short-term rental. And then this line. This includes single bedrooms in the main house. Offering any structure on the property as a short-term rental platform is a violation. I read that page 3 times before I believed it, because it means the workaround people reach for first, fine, I will just rent the bedroom upstairs instead, is the exact thing that this covenant prohibits. 3 more details. The 10 years run from final inspection approval, not from your closing. The covenant is tied to the property, not the person who signed it. So it binds you even if a previous owner took the waiver and never mentioned it. And violating it costs 150% of the current system development charge rates. That's a lot. Picture someone we'll call Marcus. Marcus buys a house in Coley with a detached ADU built 6 years ago. The ADU has a long-term tenant he does not want to displace, so he plans to rent his own guest bedroom short-term instead, 12 or 15 nights a month, comfortably inside the 270-day rule. It is a clean plan and it fits Type A perfectly, and it violates a covenant Marcus had never heard of, with 4 years left to run because the builder took the waiver in year 1. How do you check? Permit records on Portland maps will show it. Find the ADU's permit, open it, and see whether the Revenue Division shows up as a reviewer. If they did, you will see covenant recorded in the list. That is a 5-minute search and it belongs in your inspection period. Honest question, and I want the answer in the comments. When you pictured yourself doing this, were you home, meeting guests, handing over keys? Or were you picturing a property that runs without you? Those are entirely 2 different plans, and only one of them is legal in a Portland residential zone. If you are in the greater Portland, Salem, Eugene, or Southwest Washington, and you want to know whether a specific property actually supports the plan in your head, that's a conversation the Turner team is glad to have before you write an offer. No pressure, no obligation, no expectation. And if you are somewhere else or heading somewhere else, I have a referral network of agents I have worked with directly and know personally. Happy to connect you. Okay, so what does the enforcement actually look like? I'm not going to give you a compliance percentage because the city does not publish one. You will find a 90% figure floating around online, and I want to be precise about it because it means close to the opposite of how it gets quoted. The March 2026 Ombudsman report found that over 90% of Portland listings hold a Type A permits. That is the mix of permit types among people who already have a permit. And the Ombudsman raised it as a problem, not as evidence of compliance, because 62% of housing units in the Portland metro area have 3 or more bedrooms, according to the Census Bureau's American Housing Survey. Run that distribution against the permits issued, and the report estimates a high probability that 55% of the permit holders hold a Type A when they should have applied for a Type B. On unpermitted operators, the picture is patchy. Since March 2024, the city buys third-party Airbnb permit and advertising data, and the Revenue Division delists 25 to 40 dwellings a month for invalid permit numbers. Most of these are not typos. They are false numbers people entered because they had no permit, and some operators relist with a different fake number. The city largely cannot cite them because its data vendor does not supply the listing addresses. Nashville, which does buy address-level data, estimates its own compliance rate at above 95%. Portland cannot estimate its own. Enforcement is still mostly complaint-driven, and of the 417 complaints the Ombudsman received from July 2023 through June 2025, only 46% resulted in a citation. So the coverage is uneven. But if it lands on you, it lands hard. 3 things about Portland's fine schedule are true regardless of what the numbers say this month, and they are the 3 that matter. 1, Portland issues no warning first, not a letter, not a chance to fix it. The first violation is a fine. Number 2, the schedule escalates. Second offense costs several times the first, third costs more than the second, and every violation after that stays at the third offense rate. These are the highest short-term rental fines in the country as far as anybody has been able to document. The Ombudsman surveyed other cities and found Portland's maximum was at least 27 times higher than any of the others, and Portland was the only one that skipped the warning. Here are the actual dollars as of today. First offense, $1,829. Second, $5,475. Third and every one after, $9,122. Since May 2025, there's a cap for first-time violators of 1 violation per category, maximum 5 categories, which comes out to $34,670. And I want to flag that direction of travel because it's the whole reason I'm giving you a link instead of just a number. Every one of these figures went up to 26% on July 10th of this year. The cap was $27,513 through the end of June. The Ombudsman had recommended the city lower it. It went up instead. Portland readopts the schedule every budget cycle, so if you are watching this more than a few months after it posted, assume the numbers are higher and go pull the current enforcement fee and penalty schedule. It is linked below, and I would not trust the city's own short-term rental program pages for this because they are still showing last year's ladders weeks after the new one took effect. Before the cap existed at all, one operator was fined $115,283,000 and another $96,524. The report documents people selling the house, taking second mortgages, pulling from retirement savings with the early withdrawal penalty, and entering city payment plans that charge 12% interest. Non-compliance can also get your permit revoked outright. One last warning for anybody buying near the city's edges. 2 operators in that report had Happy Valley mailing addresses in Clackamas County and were inside the Portland city limits. One was told by Clackamas County officials to follow Happy Valley rules, which require no permit. That advice was wrong and the fines were real. Your mailing address is not your jurisdiction. Check the actual city limits on Portland maps. So, to answer the question, yes, you can run a legitimate short-term rental in Portland, but only in a shape most people are not picturing, and the real math is smaller than the gross booking number by more than you think. Here's how it reads by situation. If you own and you live there, this is the version that works. Up to 2 bedrooms, 5 guests, roughly $500 every 2 years, unlimited nights while you are home, and 95 while you are away. Do the neighborhood letter properly, register the business and tax account, and know whether your bedrooms were legally created before an inspector tells you. If you are buying, do not let short-term rental income set your price ceiling. Underwrite the long-term rent and treat short-term as an upside. During your inspection period, check 2 things on Portland maps: whether the property already carries a valid permit on the short-term rental registry, and whether an ADU on the lot has an SDC covenant recorded. Also confirm you are actually inside Portland. If you are selling a house with an ADU, find out now whether a covenant exists because a buyer planning short-term income will find out about it during their due diligence period. If you are investing, Portland's standard program is not built for a non-owner occupied whole house rental, full stop. The one narrow exception is a zoning answer, not a paperwork workaround. In certain multi-dwelling, campus, institutional, commercial, mixed-use, employment, and industrial zones, a short-term rental can be regulated as a retail sales and service use instead, which generally means a change of occupancy or use permit under the building code. And until that permit is final, you still need a Type A or a Type B. As of October 1st, 2024, new Type B accessory short-term rentals are prohibited outright in the commercial, mixed-use, employment, and industrial zones. For a standard house in a residential zone, the answer is also no. If you are a landlord or a condo owner, a tenant needs your written consent because the application requires the owner's signature. For declared condominiums, the city does not require HOA approval, but your CC&Rs can still prohibit it entirely and the permit will not save you. There is also a cap of 1 unit, or 25% of the units on site, whichever is greater. 3 things worth taking with you. The residency rule is not a technicality. It is the whole design, and the 95-day away from home allowance is the real flexibility inside of it. The math is dominated by costs nobody mentions. A 3% tourism assessment that is yours to pay, $4 a night the platform adds to your guest bill, a permit that renews every 2 years with a fresh round of neighbor letters, and a fee schedule the city readopts every summer, which this year meant a jump 26%. And an ADU system development charge waiver can quietly forbid short-term rentals on your entire property, bedrooms in the main house included, for 10 years. If that changed how you're thinking about the basement, hit subscribe. This is the kind of fine print I'll go through every week. Our contact is below if you want to walk through a specific property. I'm Jenny Turner with Lovejoy Real Estate. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.